Hello Dwighty boys and girls, this is the Dwight. I hope you're all doing fine during these hard quarantine times, and I'm sorry that I didn't release an episode this Monday. I was feeling pretty bad in the past 2 weeks, and I couldn't really find the time or the strength to edit an episode. But I'm a bit better now, so I should get back to making videos pretty soon. So that's great. So in the meantime, I release this video to give you my impressions on the upcoming mid-chapter update and Dead by Daylight in general, because I hear a lot of things about the balance of this game, but I think that most people missed the most important points. So yeah, with the mid-chapter update that should release tomorrow or next week, the devs announced that they will be shrinking some maps, nerfing god loops, window placements, and tile generations. You can see the changes here, but you've probably already seen most of these on your favorite streamers' channels, so I won't do that. I won't detail everything. The dev update stating all of this released on the 3rd of April, and since then I've seen a lot of contradictory opinions on social media, and I kinda had to make this video because from what I see, most people are stuck in the debate of which role is the strongest and if the update is a killer buff or a survivor nerf or whatever. And to explain what I think of this patch, I first need to say something that might hurt a lot of people, but try to understand it and not get offended if you believe the opposite. Dead by Daylight is a mechanically easy game. If you play this game with default controls, you only press WASD, E, mouse 1, mouse 2, and spacebar, and that's it. So don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Dead by Daylight is an easy game, I just mean that mechanically it is not hard. Vaulting is pressing one button, using that hard is pressing one button. The slight part of mechanical skill that the game contains are skill checks, which are still pretty trivial. So where Dead by Daylight becomes hard and tricky is when it comes to mind games. Even though the game is mechanically easy, a good or a bad player will be differentiated by the efficiency of their mind games and game knowledge, and this for both sides. On the survivor side, you can fake vault, slow vault to not make a sound, walk a bit to disorientate the killer with confusing scratch marks, and so on and so on. And on the killer side, you moonwalk, you hide a red stain, you fake which way you're going, and blah blah blah. And none of this is mechanically hard. You don't need to press a lot of buttons on the keyboard to play the game. It's more a battle between two brains than a battle between hands and fingers moving super fast on a keyboard or a controller, like in a versus fighting game, for example, like Street Fighter. And I like the analogy with versus fighting games to make you understand my point better, because these games have a really hard skill cap when it comes to mechanical skills. The combos and attacks are physically hard to pull out. If you're a fighting game player, then you know what I'm talking about, and you've probably been practicing the same attacks over and over in practice mode until you can finally get to use them in a real fight. In Dead by Daylight, aside from moonwalking, you're never gonna go in custom game and practice your vaulting or running. That just doesn't make any sense. There is nothing mechanic. There are no mechanics to practice in DBD. So back to versus fighting. You have, in these kind of games, you have two major options when it comes to beating your opponent. And you usually use both your mechanical skills and your brain. Because mind game is just as important as your ability to pull off your combos. And it's a mix of these two aspects that make these kind of games RNG free, so without luck and interesting to play. In Dead by Daylight though, like I said, there is only one of these two aspects, the mind game. You can be a complete potato and not knowing how to use a computer. As long as you can press shift and move your mouse, you might be able to run a killer for 1 or 2 gens if you have a brain and know how the game works, Which is not a problem, don't get me wrong. I love this game, I love playing it, and I think it's perfectly fine because it makes the game accessible to a lot of people and platforms, so that's great. It's cool that DBD is easy to play. However, this leads to extreme amounts of frustration, and this is where the mid-chapter patch comes in handy. In Rancid Abattoir, Grim Pantry, Ironworks and Misery, and other maps, you can basically outplay the killer just by pressing spacebar and going through a god vault, for example. And I think this is a bad thing for the game, and overall a bad thing for everyone's happiness while playing the game. As a killer, when a survivor goes through a god vault, it's not that it's strong or overpowered or anything. Like I see all over the place on social media, and it just annoys me because I'm like, this is not what it's about. Because you can, if a survivor goes to a really, really strong setup, alright, just drop the chase, go chase someone else, apply pressure somewhere else on the map, and you can still win the game. Yes, of course. But the problem is that it feels absurd and it creates a lot of frustration. Because you simply cannot do anything. When you get beaten in a fighting game, you can say that your opponent just played better or practiced more, and that's fine, good for him then. In Dead by Daylight, you hit the survivor, he or she runs to an OP vault and presses spacebar, and you lose. There's nothing you can do to make the situation better. It's not like you're gonna play better than the survivor so you can, I don't know, run even faster or catch up. No, you just can't do anything. The survivor presses one hotkey and you lose the chase. So whether you chase the survivor and waste 3 or 4 gens on an almost infinite loop, or like I said, you chase someone else, and this is what you should do, obviously. I see a lot of people complaining, like when a survivor goes to a really strong setup, you don't have to keep chasing the survivor, you can just go somewhere else on the map and win the game. That's not what it's about. It's not strong or weak or whatever, it doesn't matter. But it just feels stupid. It feels stupid and frustrating because what the survivor did is just pressing spacebar. There is no mechanic skill involved and there is no mind game involved because you just have to run to a really strong setup and press spacebar. So at this point, it's not the survivor's or the killer's fault. The game in itself is just absurd. You know, you see the survivor vault and you're like, ugh, again, Jesus, fuck this game, boring. And you just go chase someone else, but you're just like, alright, fun. And I think the dev team understood all of this pretty well, and this is why a lot of things are going to change in the mid-chapter update, probably for the better. So yeah, they're shrinking some maps and changing placements of vaults to try to, I think, avoid this kind of frustration that they're probably aware of. And this is probably where, you know, most of the toxicity from the community comes from. Because when as a killer you can't do anything about something, you're just frustrated, and frustration makes you toxic, because the survivor feels like the survivor played really, really well, and haha, I outplayed you, Mr. Killer, but no, the map is just bullshit, and that's just how things are, but you gotta accept it. But I think it just makes people frustrated and toxic, and that sucks, because I believe the Dead by Daylight's community is not as toxic as people think, at least outside of the games. And I can't wait to see how the mid-chapter patch is going to change things, if the games are going to be more enjoyable, less enjoyable. Can't wait to have your guys' feedbacks on all of this. I think it's going to be pretty interesting, especially if you play both sides. So yeah, that was my my small take on the mid-chapter update and some things I wanted to say about the game. I hope I haven't been too long. See you soon for another episode of the Dwight Chronicles. Take it easy, guys, and well, you know, hang on as long as the quarantine is going. I hope you and your family are safe.